Today at Deutsche Auto Parts, we're going to be installing a RNS315 Navigation Unit on a MK6 Jetta. Okay, so the RNS315 Navigation Unit, we actually just got a whole bunch of these on Blowout. We are going to be offering these with an aftermarket GPS antenna. They are going to be $350 for the nav unit, already set up, plug and play, ready to go. We're going to show you how to install this on a MK6 Jetta. One note I want to make, when you're installing these on a car, you may have to actually do some coding to potentially have get rid of potential fault codes that could be in there in the gateway module. It would be something that would be fine if you just plug and play or install it, but it will be a fault code that's in there for the nav unit not coded. But there will be no functionality, or shouldn't be any functionality differences. And the model we've tested, there were not. You know, that may vary by model, but that should generally be the case on most cars. Let's get into our install. Okay, so to remove our radio, we're going to start by popping off this trim. It's going to vary a little bit by model, but in this particular car, we're going to use a bone tool, and then I also have a straight pick that will allow you to lift it up. You could use like a small flathead screwdriver or something like that as well. So what we're going to do is get our pick in, and because this is just kind of a point, you're going to find a spot to kind of get in between the trim and the dashboard of the car. Now obviously you got to do this in a spot where you're not going to damage the trim or the dash. So when you get it in there, you can then allow yourself to get that bone tool in there, and then you're going to slide it up, and then as you slide it, you see the dash trim will start to pop out, and then you can kind of slide it back in along the bottom, and you see the trim kind of starts to pop on its own. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side of the radio. Once you get under there, you can just pop it down and then slide that across. And then we come across here. And now our trim piece is out of the way. And on this car, we have the airbag connector here, just to tell you if there's a passenger in there. You can probably do it without this. We're just going to move this out of the way for now, just to give you more view here. All right, so then all we have are these 4 torque screws holding the radio in. So we're going to take those out. And so we're just going to take our 4 T20 Torx out. Alright, so now that we have those 4 screws out, all we're going to do is take our nav unit and slide it, or our radio, and slide it out of place. Alright, so once we get our radio out, all we're going to be doing is taking out these connectors, the quad lock adapter, and then here's our antenna cable. So we are going to just push down this bottom, and then it should unclip just like that. You see here, you're going to be pushing down right here, and then this should slide off. This is the double style. And then these quad lock adapters, I'll try to rotate it so you can see. Usually all you need to do is kind of pull down on the bottom and then push back. And now we have our radio out. Okay, so we're going to be installing our nav unit here, but before we do so, we have to install our GPS antenna. You have a couple options when it comes to installing GPS antennas. This particular one we actually include. This is an aftermarket one included with our kit. You have a couple options. You can either go with a factory puck antenna, kind of like this one, or you can try to run a GPS shark fin from the roof all the way down. That's probably like 4 times the price of this setup. The GPS puck from Volkswagen, the accessory one for RNS315s, is roughly around 130 bucks, and this one's less than half the price, and we include it with this kit. So we actually threw some double-sided adhesive on the back of this that we're just going to peel off. And we're just going to stick this on the back of this area on the right hand side, passenger side of the vehicle. There's a gap above the radio cage that you can just slide this in place and then kind of stick it down. And that's all we want to do, is make sure we can get that GPS puck towards the top of the dashboard, and so that it has a clear line of sight once everything's installed. So we have some excess wire here. We're just going to keep that tucked back, and then we're going to take our radio here, and pretty simple. All we're going to do is plug that one in, plug this antenna in, and this green one would be for satellite radio. This car does not have that, so obviously we don't need to worry about that. And then we take our quad lock adapter, and we're going to push that in place, kick that bottom piece out, and then you rotate it in place and everything's locked in. Now all we're going to do is slide our radio back in place. Now one note, there's going to be a radio code included with your radio. You want to make sure you have that before you reinstall everything. So we already have our radio code, and we're going to slide this back in place. And we're going to put our screws in. All right, so now we've finished with that. We're going to put our radio trim back on, and as we popped it off, you can actually just see all the holes on these clips that kind of go around the edges. So to reinstall that, we're just going to pop it back in place again, making sure we unplugged the warning light here for the passenger airbag detection. So we're going to slide that connector back in before we pop this back in place. And then we're just going to slide this. Now, one note, before you do this, it's always best to turn on the radio and check everything before you reinstall everything. That way you don't have to take the trim off again. All right, so we are going to be installing our radio code, and to do that, all you're going to do is enter the numbers, and then you hit the OK button. Now, one note I want to make is when you are inside with the GPS antenna, it's not going to be able to read. So you actually have to go outside physically and maybe even drive a little bit to make sure that it can actually center. So when you have your map pulled up, we're actually inside right now. So as you can see, there is 280, which is a highway that is nowhere near here. So it doesn't recognize where we are, and we have to go outside to make sure we can get that centered. Okay, so now you can see our nav unit has actually centered itself. You can see here we have where we're located on Route 21, and there's I-77. This is all our local area now. So we've gone outside. Obviously, it's now found us. It takes a minute, and then you can follow along and just see points of interest, for example, and find, you know, here's our closest VW dealer. It'll pull up the closest VW dealers to us, which is my old store, and then the other stores you'll find Volkswagen of South Charlotte. Thank you so much for watching our RNS315 install video. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.